I stood in the courthouse bathroom, adjusting my blazer for the 10th time. The scarred skin on my back pulled tight with every movement, a constant reminder of that night 3 years ago. My lawyer, Ms. Bennett, had warned me they'd both be there today. My mother and Marcus, my stepfather. The perfect couple, pillars of our small community, youth group leaders at First Baptist Church. If only their congregation could have heard my little sister's screams that night. The memory crashed over me like a wave. Sarah, only 11, cowering in the corner as Marcus towered over her, belt in hand because she'd forgotten to call him sir. I'd stepped between them, something I'd never dared to do before. "Don't touch her," I'd said, my voice shaking but determined. "She's just a kid." The next few moments played in slow motion in my nightmares. Marcus's face contorting with rage. My mother appearing in the doorway, her eyes cold and distant. "Julia needs another lesson in respect, doesn't she, dear?" she'd said, as if discussing the weather. I touched the back of my neck, feeling the raised scar tissue through my shirt. The metal rod from our fireplace set had still been decorated with our family name, Bennett. The irony wasn't lost on me that it now matched my lawyer's name. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Julia?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "The bailiff says it's time." I opened the bathroom door. Sarah, now 14, stood there in her best dress, the one we'd bought together after I got her out. Dark circles under her eyes told me she hadn't slept either. "You don't have to do this," I said, straightening her collar. "You can wait outside." She squared her shoulders, looking so much older than 14. "I'm not leaving you alone with them again. Never again." Walking into the courtroom, I felt their eyes immediately. My mother dressed in her Sunday best, clutching her Bible like a shield. Marcus, his face a mask of righteous indignation. Their supporters filled 2 whole rows, church members who'd written letters defending their firm but loving parenting style. My side had fewer people but stronger ones. Ms. Bennett, who'd taken my case pro bono after seeing my scars. Detective Rivera, who photographed the burns and listened to Sarah's testimony with tears in his eyes. Dr. Chen, who documented years of suspicious injuries that our family doctor had ignored. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Martinez entered, her face unreadable. She'd spent the last 3 days reviewing evidence, photographs, medical records, Sarah's diary, and the video that changed everything. My mother had always recorded their disciplinary sessions, proof, she said, that they were doing God's work. The night of the branding, she propped her phone on the mantelpiece, capturing everything in horrible clarity. "Before we proceed," Judge Martinez began, "I want to address something submitted into evidence this morning." She lifted a familiar leather-bound book. "Mrs. Harrison, you recognize this diary?" My mother's face paled. It was her private journal, the one she kept locked in her bedside drawer. The one where she detailed every punishment with disturbing pride. "Objection, Your Honor." Their lawyer stood. "That diary was obtained illegally." Overruled, Judge Martinez cut him off. The diary was found during a legal search of the Harrison residence, authorized after Ms. Harrison's younger sister reported additional abuse. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Martinez read an entry. "Julia's defiance required stronger measures today." The Lord guided Marcus's hand as we pressed the brand to her flesh. Her screams were prayers of redemption. Someone in the church group gasped. I felt Sarah's hand slip into mine, squeezing tight. "Mrs. Harrison," the judge continued, "you wrote this the night you held down your 15-year-old daughter while your husband pressed a heated metal rod into her back. You wrote that her skin sizzled like Satan leaving her body." My mother's face hardened. We were saving her soul. By burning your family name into her flesh? She needed to remember who she belonged to, Marcus interrupted, his voice self-righteous. "Everything we did was out of love." Judge Martinez's gaze could have frozen hell. "Mr. Harrison, I suggest you remain silent." "I'm not finished." She turned another page in the diary. "There are 3 years of entries here. 3 years of documented torture disguised as discipline. 3 years of evidence that you and your wife methodically abused 2 children while your community turned a blind eye." The church group shifted uncomfortably. Some were seeing us, really seeing us, for the first time. "Your Honor," Ms. Bennett stood. "The prosecution would like to play the video from the night in question." I closed my eyes. I didn't need to watch. I still lived it every night in my dreams. But I needed everyone else to see. Needed them to hear my screams, see my mother's smile, witness Marcus's righteousness as he pressed that metal into my skin. The projector hummed to life, and my 15-year-old voice filled the courtroom. "Please, Mom, please don't let him." The video played with merciless clarity on the courtroom's projection screen. Every gasp, every plea, every sickening sizzle of flesh echoed through the silent room. The camera angle showed everything: my mother's serene smile as she pinned my arms, Marcus's face twisted in righteous satisfaction, and Sarah's small form huddled in the corner, hands pressed over her ears. "Turn it up," Judge Martinez ordered when Marcus's voice came through the speakers. "This is what happens when you challenge my authority in my Christian household." Several church members got up and left, unable to watch. Mrs. Peterson, who'd written a glowing character reference for my parents, vomited into her purse. The worst part wasn't the physical violence, it was the prayers they recited while doing it. My mother's voice, calm and measured: "Lord, we thank you for giving us the strength to correct our wayward daughter." When the video showed Marcus reheating the rod for a second burn, Judge Martinez raised her hand. "That's enough." Her voice shook slightly. "Bailiff, lights." The fluorescent lights flickered back on, revealing tears on several jurors' faces. One elderly man was openly sobbing. Detective Rivera took the stand next. "We found similar implements in the Harrison residence during our search," he testified, placing evidence bags on the table. "All with signs of use. All with different family-related phrases meant to be branded into skin." He held up each bag: "Property of father. God's faithful daughter. Obedient wife." These were meant for future use, he continued. Based on diary entries, they had plans for young Sarah's 13th birthday. Sarah stiffened beside me. That birthday would have been next month. My mother stood suddenly. "We are their parents. We have the right." "Sit down, Mrs. Harrison," Judge Martinez thundered. "You have the right to remain silent, which I strongly suggest you exercise before you incriminate yourself further." Marcus's lawyer, sweating now, attempted damage control. "Your Honor, while my client's methods may seem extreme to some, they were acting within their sincerely held religious beliefs." Objection. Ms. Bennett's voice cracked like a whip. "Religious freedom does not extend to torture of minors." Sustained, Judge Martinez ruled. "And counsel, I suggest you rethink your defense strategy. This court will not entertain religious justification for child abuse." The next hour brought a parade of medical experts. They showed x-rays of old fractures, photographs of belt marks, documentation of accidents that had been explained away. Dr. Chin's testimony was particularly damning. "The scarring on Julia's back will be permanent," he explained. "The tissue damage is extensive, and the psychological trauma." He paused, composing himself. "In 15 years of emergency medicine, I've never seen calculated cruelty of this magnitude." During a brief recess, Sarah tugged my sleeve. "Look," she whispered. Our former pastor was talking to my mother, his face ashen. She reached for his arm, but he recoiled, shaking his head. One by one, the church members who had come to support them moved to different seats, leaving my parents isolated. When court resumed, Ms. Bennett called me to the stand. I walked past my parents, feeling Marcus's glare burning into my back, fitting, given the circumstances. "Julia," Ms. Bennett said gently, "can you tell the court what happened after the night of the branding?" I took a deep breath. I couldn't go to school for weeks. The wounds got infected. My mother said it was God's way of drawing out my demons. My voice strengthened, but she made a mistake. She sent me to school too soon, before the bandages could be removed. My gym teacher saw them during class. And what happened then? She called CPS. But my parents were respected in the community. They convinced everyone I was troubled, making up stories. I looked directly at my mother. Until Sarah got sick. The courtroom tensed. This was the turning point, the detail that had finally cracked their perfect facade. "They wouldn't take her to the hospital," I continued. "Said prayer would heal her appendicitis." I waited until they were at church, took their spare car keys, and drove her to the emergency room. She was minutes from rupturing. "You were 16, Ms. Bennett clarified. No license, no permission. You risked everything to save your sister." "They would have let her die," I said, my voice breaking for the first time. "Just like they would have killed me eventually, all in the name of discipline." I looked at the jury, at the church members who had enabled my parents for years. The brand on my back says honor thy father, but real honor, real faith, isn't about power or pain. It's about love, and there was never any love in that house, just control disguised as righteousness. Marcus stood up, his chair clattering backward. You ungrateful. Mr. Harrison. Judge Martinez's gavel crashed down. One more outburst and you'll be removed from this courtroom. Though given the evidence we've seen, that may be the least of your concerns. The judge's eyes met mine, and I saw something there, not pity, but understanding. She'd seen through their godly masquerade to the monsters beneath. Court will recess for 1 hour, she announced. When we return, I'll announce my verdict. As the bailiff led my parents out, my mother turned to look at me one last time. The mask of maternal concern had finally cracked, revealing the coldness that had always lived behind her eyes. I didn't look away. I wasn't their victim anymore. The scars on my back weren't marks of shame. They were evidence of survival. When court resumed, the tension was palpable. My parents sat ramrod straight, still clinging to their righteousness, but the emptiness of the benches behind them told a different story. Their supporters had fled, leaving only their lawyer, who looked like he wanted to do the same. Judge Martinez didn't waste time with preliminaries. In my 20 years on the bench, she began, I have seen many cases of child abuse. I have seen parents who hurt their children out of anger, addiction, or mental illness. But what I've witnessed in this courtroom is something altogether different. Systematic, calculated torture justified through a perversion of faith. She lifted my mother's diary. This document details 3 years of premeditated abuse. Mrs. Harrison, you wrote about selecting implements, planning sessions, choosing which parts of your children's bodies would best hide the marks. You documented your daughter's pain with what I can only describe as satisfaction. My mother's face remained stone-like, but her hands trembled. Mr. Harrison, the judge continued, you branded a 15-year-old girl like cattle. You marked her body permanently to assert your ownership. This court rejects any notion that such actions fall under parental rights or religious freedom. The judge paused, removing her glasses. Julia Harrison, please stand. I rose on shaking legs, Sarah's hand still clutched in mine. This court finds overwhelming evidence of aggravated child abuse, torture, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to commit bodily harm. Marcus and Elizabeth Harrison, please rise. They stood, my mother still clutching her Bible. This court sentences you each to 25 years in state prison, without possibility of parole for 15 years. Additionally, you are permanently forbidden from any contact with Julia or Sarah Harrison, directly or through third parties. The gavel crashed down and something broke inside me, not in pain, but in release. 3 years of fear, of looking over my shoulder, of nightmares about them finding us, ended with that sound. Marcus lunged forward. You can't do this. They're our children. Not anymore, Judge Martinez stated as bailiffs moved to restrain him. They stopped being your children the moment you chose cruelty over love. Remove them. As they were led away, my mother finally cracked. Julia, tell them we did it for you. Tell them we loved you. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the last time. Love doesn't leave scars, Mom. The bailiffs led them out, my mother's sobs echoing through the courtroom. The same sobs she used to fake when convincing neighbors we were a happy family. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras. Ms. Bennett helped us navigate through them, but I paused at the top of the steps. Sarah squeezed my hand, understanding what I needed to do. Yes, I'll make a statement, I told the reporters. But not about the verdict. I want to talk to other kids living in homes like mine, kids whose parents use faith to justify abuse. The cameras rolled as I spoke. You're not alone. What they're doing isn't love, isn't discipline, and isn't God's will. There are people who will help you. There are people who will believe you. You don't have to carry those scars alone. That evening, Sarah and I sat in our small apartment, the one I'd rented with my salary as a youth counselor after getting custody of her. The phone kept ringing with calls from support groups and survivors who'd seen the news. What do we do now? Sarah asked, curled up on our second-hand couch. I touched the back of my neck, feeling the scars that no longer held power over me. We heal. We help others heal. And we live, really live, without fear. A week later, I received a package from the courthouse. Inside was my mother's diary, now marked as evidence, and a note from Judge Martinez. Your testimony will help change laws. Your courage will help change lives. I put the diary on a shelf, not hidden away, but kept as a reminder, not of the pain, but of survival, of transformation, of justice. The brand on my back had been meant to mark me as their property forever. Instead, it became a symbol of everything I'd overcome. Each scar told a story, not of their cruelty, but of my strength. Sarah started high school that fall, no longer the scared little girl hiding in corners. I went back to college, studying social work. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but they changed. In them, I was no longer the victim. I was the protector, standing between monsters and other children who needed saving. Sometimes, late at night, I still trace the raised letters on my back. But they don't spell honor thy father anymore. To me, they spell survivor. And that's the title I chose to keep. I'm Jessica, 35, thriving in my marketing career and living the suburban dream with my husband, Mike. We've been married for 10 years, and though we don't have kids, we're the cool aunt and uncle to my brother-in-law Matthew's daughters, Susan and Lisa. It was a typical Friday evening when the girls came over for the weekend. Mike was firing up the grill, and I was setting the table when I noticed something seemed off with Susan. "Hey, kiddo, everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She shrugged. "Yeah, I guess." But her face told me otherwise. Later that night, after Lisa had gone to bed, Susan and I were cleaning up the kitchen. "So how's life with the new stepmom?" I asked gently. Susan's expression fell. "It's different." She hesitated, and then it all came out. "Vanessa's always on our case. Nothing we do is ever good enough. She's always criticizing us, finding reasons to punish us. Last week, she took away my phone because I got home 2 minutes late from school." My heart sank. "Have you talked to your dad about this?" Susan shook her head. "He doesn't see it. Or maybe he doesn't want to." I tried to reassure her, but inside, I was fuming. The next day, I decided to call Matthew. "Hey Matthew, do you have a minute? I'm a bit worried." Susan seemed off. "Is everything okay at home?" There was a pause. "Everything's fine, Jessica. The girls are just adjusting to having Vanessa around. It's a big change, you know." I could sense he wasn't open to discussing it further, so I dropped it, though I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. That night, I lay awake restless until Mike found me in the kitchen at 2 a.m., nursing a cup of tea. "What's on your mind, hon?" he asked, sitting beside me. I filled him in on my conversation with Susan and Matthew's dismissive response. "That doesn't sound good," he agreed. "But what can we do? They're not our kids," I sighed. "I know, but they're family. We can't just ignore this." We stayed up, brainstorming ways to help without overstepping. A few days later, I was in the middle of a conference call when my phone started buzzing. Lisa's name flashed on the screen, and a feeling of dread washed over me. "Aunt Jessica, please help us." Her voice came barely above a whisper, thick with fear. "Vanessa locked us in our room. We haven't eaten since yesterday. Dad's not answering his phone. I'm scared." My blood ran cold. "Stay calm, sweetie. We're coming." I rushed to Mike's office, heart racing. "We need to go now." The drive to Matthew's house was a blur, my mind filled with the worst possible scenarios. When we arrived, Vanessa's car was in the driveway. "Stay calm," Mike warned. "We don't want to make things worse for the girls." I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Vanessa answered, putting on a bright fake smile. "Jessica." "Mike." What a surprise. "What brings you here?" I forced a smile. "We were in the neighborhood and thought we'd drop by to see the girls." "Oh, they're upstairs doing homework." You know how teenagers procrastinate. I clenched my fists at her casual lie. "Mind if we say hi?" Her smile faltered for a split second, but she stepped aside. "Of course. Come on up." We climbed the stairs, with Vanessa trailing close behind. When we reached the girls' room, the door was shut with a chair wedged under the handle. My stomach turned. "What's this?" I asked, pointing to the chair. Vanessa laughed nervously. "Oh, that. The girls were messing around earlier and must have forgotten to move it." I removed the chair and opened the door. Susan and Lisa were huddled together on the bed, their tear-streaked faces lighting up with relief when they saw us. "Girls, why don't we come downstairs?" "I'm sure you're hungry," I said, shooting a pointed look at Vanessa. As Lisa stood, I noticed dark bruises on her arm. My blood boiled, but I held back, knowing it wasn't the time. "Actually," I said, turning to Vanessa, "why don't the girls come stay with us for a few days? Give you a break while Matthew's away." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. That's not necessary. Please, Susan pleaded softly. We miss Aunt Jessica and Uncle Mike. After a tense silence, Vanessa relented. Fine, but only until Matthew gets back. The car ride home was quiet, but once inside, the floodgates opened. Susan and Lisa poured out months of pain and fear. She calls us worthless. Susan sobbed, says we're the reason Dad can't be happy. Last week, Lisa added, voice shaking, she pushed me down the stairs because I forgot to take out the trash. After the girls fell asleep, I confided in Mike, we need to document everything. Matthew has to see the truth. Over the next few days, we carefully gathered evidence, photos of the girls' bruises, recordings of their accounts. It was heart-wrenching, but necessary. Then, the storm hit. Matthew burst through our front door, his face twisted with anger. What the hell do you think you're doing, Jessica? Kidnapping my kids? Matthew, please, you need to listen. I began, trying to keep calm. No, you listen, he shouted. You've always been jealous of Vanessa. Now you're turning my own daughters against her. I took a deep breath. Matthew, the girls are being abused. We have proof. Proof? What proof? He sneered. A few crocodile tears and made-up stories. Susan and Lisa appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. Dad, please, Susan begged. It's all true. Vanessa is hurting us, Lisa whispered, clinging to me. But Matthew's face only darkened. Enough, he bellowed. Get your things. We're going home. The girls clung to me, their faces full of fear. No, Dad, Lisa's voice shook. We're not going back there. You ungrateful brats. He yelled, his face a deep shade of purple. After everything I've done for you. At that moment, Mike stepped between Matthew and the girls. I think you should leave, Matthew, now. For a tense moment, I thought Matthew might throw a punch, but instead he spat, you'll be hearing from my lawyer, before storming out. The next morning, before I'd even had my coffee, I was on the phone with Child Protective Services, detailing everything we knew. The woman on the line listened patiently. We'll launch an investigation immediately, she assured me, but these things take time. Time. It was the one thing I felt we didn't have. But we had to trust the process. Weeks dragged by, but the girls began to settle into a routine with us. Still, a shadow of uncertainty hung over everything. One afternoon, I overheard Susan on the phone with a friend. Yeah, I'm staying with my aunt and uncle for a while. It's complicated. My heart ached. These kids deserved so much better. Mike and I poured ourselves into creating a stable, comforting environment. We found a therapist who specialized in trauma, and I'll never forget Susan's words after her first session. It's nice to talk to someone who doesn't think I'm crazy or lying. We helped them catch up on missed schoolwork, celebrating every small victory. Slowly, we saw glimpses of the vibrant girls we remembered. One day, Lisa came bouncing into the kitchen, waving a flyer. Aunt Jessica, there's a local art class. Can I sign up? I hugged her tight. Of course, sweetie. While the girls were healing, things with Matthew were deteriorating. His texts grew more hostile. You've poisoned my daughters against me. I'm getting a lawyer. You'll regret this. I tried reasoning with him, but it was like talking to a wall. That's when I decided to take things into my own hands. I contacted a private investigator. I want you to dig into Vanessa's past, I told him. There's got to be more to her story. 2 weeks later, he came back with a bombshell. Vanessa had a history of similar allegations in previous relationships. There was even a restraining order filed by her ex-husband's kids. Jesus, Mike muttered as we pored over the files. How did Matthew not know about this? I shook my head, compiling everything into a dossier, but something held me back from turning it over just yet. We needed ironclad proof if we were going to make Matthew see the truth. As summer turned to fall, I watched Susan and Lisa blossom. They made new friends, rediscovered old hobbies. But every time Matthew's name flashed on my phone, I was reminded that this peace was fragile. One night, as Mike and I lay in bed, I voiced my deepest fear. What if we lose them? Mike squeezed my hand. We won't. We'll fight with everything we've got. I nodded, praying he was right, because the thought of sending those girls back to that house was unimaginable. Months crawled by, and the official investigation seemed to go nowhere. Matthew stonewalled every attempt to cooperate, making it difficult for CPS to build a case. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life began unraveling. We heard through the grapevine that she'd been fired for embezzlement, and Matthew's friends started distancing themselves, muttering about her increasingly erratic behavior. Then came the night that changed everything. It was past midnight when our doorbell started ringing nonstop. Security footage showed Vanessa, clearly intoxicated, swaying on our porch. "Let me see my girls," she slurred, pounding on the door. Chaos erupted as she grew more belligerent, and it wasn't long before the police arrived, arresting her as she kicked and screamed. The girls huddled in the living room, both terrified and relieved. "It's over," Susan whispered. "It's finally over." With Vanessa's arrest, everything we had gathered finally came to light. Faced with undeniable evidence, Matthew crumbled. He showed up at our door a week later, looking like he aged a decade. "I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I should have listened. I should have protected them." The girls were cautious but agreed to talk. After a long, tearful conversation, Lisa spoke up. "We want to try," she said, "but we need rules. Family therapy, and if Vanessa stays gone. Forever." Matthew nodded, relief and determination in his eyes. "Anything. I'll do anything to make this right." Life gradually settled into a new normal. Susan and Lisa stayed with us, thriving in the stable environment we provided. They began having supervised visits with Matthew, slowly rebuilding trust. One evening, as Mike and I watched the girls laughing in the backyard, he turned to me. "You know, we're pretty good at this parenting thing." I smiled. "Yeah, maybe we are. Maybe we should look into fostering." Months later, I found a letter on my nightstand. Inside was a hand-drawn card from Susan and Lisa. "Dear Aunt Jessica and Uncle Mike, we don't know where we'd be without you. Thank you for fighting for us, for believing us, for loving us. You saved us in every way a person can be saved. We love you, Susan and Lisa." I hugged the card to my chest, tears flowing freely. The road had been long and hard, but seeing those girls heal and grow made every battle worth it. We had weathered the storm together and come out stronger on the other side. Now I have a question for you. If you were in Jessica's position, would you have confronted Matthew earlier about Vanessa's behavior, even without concrete evidence? Or would you have waited to gather proof, knowing the girls might suffer longer? This is a tough dilemma that many face when suspecting abuse. There's no easy answer, but your perspective could help others in similar situations. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Margaret, a 27-year-old corporate lawyer at Wilson & Brooks. But my journey here wasn't easy. I began feeling a mix of pride and nostalgia. "Margaret, these flower arrangements are gorgeous," Sarah exclaimed, scrolling through options on her iPad. My best friend and my wedding planner had truly been a lifesaver. "Mom would have loved these white roses. They were her favorite," I murmured, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. "She used to grow them in our backyard." "Tell me more about her," Henry said, squeezing my hand. My fiancé always knew when I needed comfort. "Linda Mitchell was the kindest soul you'd ever meet. I was 15 when cancer took her. With those memories," I smiled faintly. "Back then, Dad and I were so close. He'd swing me around the kitchen while Mom cooked Sunday dinners, calling me his little attorney because I always argued about bedtime." My smile faded. 3 months. It only took him 3 months to bring Patricia home, I added bitterly. And everything changed. "She's really outdone herself this time," Uncle Thomas said, stepping into the room. "Your father just called. Patricia's insisting on hosting the engagement party at their house instead of the venue you booked." Classic Pat. Sarah rolled her eyes. "Remember when she accidentally spilled wine on your law school graduation dress?" she asked. "Or when she convinced your dad you were too busy to join their Christmas vacation, then posted all those perfect family photos without you?" I nodded. The memory's sour. And Dad always defends her. He's so blind to her games. Uncle Thomas put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "I saw through her the moment your father brought her home. The way she moved your mother's photos to the attic and replaced them with her own." I swallowed hard. But look at me now, partner at 27 and marrying the most amazing pediatrician. I grinned at Henry. "Speaking of which, should I tell them how you proposed?" "Oh God, please don't," I laughed, recalling that chaotic night. He tried cooking my favorite pasta but ended up setting off the fire alarm for the entire building. But I still said yes. Between coughs. I laughed. Even with mascara running down my face from the smoke, the ring was in the garlic bread. That didn't burn, Henry defended himself, making everyone laugh. Uncle Thomas checked his watch, looking serious. Speaking of Patricia, she's been asking about your mother's jewelry collection. My stomach twisted. She'd better stay away from Mom's things, I said tensely. I still can't find Mom's pearl earrings after Patricia helped organize my closet last year. Don't worry, sweetheart, Uncle Thomas assured. I got your back, always have, always will. At least the wedding planning's going smoothly, aside from Pat trying to change everything Sarah and I decide on. I sighed. Sarah smirked. Just wait until she finds out you're planning to wear your mom's wedding dress. I wish you were here, Mom, I whispered, gently tracing the lace on her wedding gown. You know exactly how to handle all this. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the ivory silk. Mom had incredible taste. Just then, the door burst open, and Patricia stormed in, her face twisted with anger. So this is what you're doing behind my back. I told you I already ordered a new dress. This is my mother's dress, Pat. I'm wearing it. Patricia's face contorted. After I spent thousands on that designer gown? David, come see how your daughter is disrespecting me again. My father appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. What's going on? She's deliberately excluding me from the wedding preparations, Patricia cried. I'm her stepmother. Pat, please, calm down, Sarah interjected, but Patricia was seething. Calm down. When she parades around in this old rag just to spite me, Patricia shrieked, lunging forward and grabbing the dress. Let go, I shouted, but it was too late. The horrible sound of tearing fabric filled the room as Patricia yanked, ripping a massive hole through the bodice. Oh my God, Sarah gasped. Henry rushed in, alarmed by the commotion. What happened? I stood there, trembling, holding the ruined remains of my mother's wedding dress. How could you? I whispered, my voice breaking. You brought this on yourself, Dad said, his words hitting me like a slap. If you had just included Patricia. Included her? I was shaking. She just destroyed Mom's dress, and you're defending her. You've been pushing her away since day one, always throwing your mother's memory in her face. Henry stepped forward, his voice firm. David, this is too far. Your wife just destroyed a family heirloom. Patricia sneered. Like those tacky old jewels she's so precious about. My blood ran cold. What did you do with Mom's jewelry? I have no idea what you're talking about, she said, but her smirk said otherwise. Empty your closet, Pat. Now, Uncle Thomas's commanding voice cut through the room, and we all turned. He stood in the doorway, fury radiating from him. You have no right. I have every right, Uncle Thomas said. That jewelry collection belongs to Margaret. It was in Linda's will, Uncle Thomas reminded them, his tone icy. This is my house, Dad argued, his face darkening, and those are my mother's things. He glared at me as if I was the intruder. What else has she taken? I demanded, my voice shaking. Check the pawn shops, Sarah whispered. Bet that's where Mom's pearl earrings went. Get out of my house, Patricia shrieked. Gladly, but this isn't over, I shot back, turning toward the door. Don't you dare walk out, Dad yelled after me. Or what, Dad? I replied, my voice cold. You'll blame me for that too. You might have destroyed her dress, but you'll never destroy her memory. Henry wrapped his arm around me as we left. I'm calling my lawyer first thing tomorrow. We're going to find everything she took, Margaret. I promise. As we drove away, I watched through my tears as Dad comforted Patricia in the doorway. It felt like the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. 2 weeks later, Sarah spread a series of files across my dining room table. 3 previous marriages, all to wealthy men. All ended under suspicious circumstances, she said, laying out court records. And look, Patricia filed for bankruptcy right before meeting your dad. Yet somehow, when she moved in, she had designer clothes and a new car. There's more. Sarah pulled up an email. Remember that pawn shop on 5th Street? I got confirmation she sold your mom's sapphire necklace there 3 months ago. My hands shook as I dialed Uncle Thomas. He answered on the first ring. Already at the jewelry store. The owner remembers her well. She's been selling pieces for years. I'm getting security footage. My phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Amy. Margaret, Pat's telling everyone you're lying about the dress incident because you're jealous of her and Uncle David's relationship. Sarah shook her head. Classic manipulation. But wait until they see this. She showed me a Facebook post from 2015. There was Patricia sitting with Dad at a cafe. The date stamp was 2 weeks before Mom's death. They were having an affair while Mom was dying. My voice cracked. Look at her hand on his. Sarah's tone grew serious. It gets worse. Your dad's company records just came through. Patricia's been named primary beneficiary of everything. House, business, life insurance. The changes were made last month. Just then, my phone rang, Patricia's number. Put it on speaker, Sarah whispered, hitting record on her phone. You think you're so clever, digging around. Patricia's voice was venomous. Back off, or I'll make sure you lose everything. Like you made Mom lose everything. I shot back. Oh, your precious mother was weak, she sneered. I saw what I wanted and took it. David was so easy to manipulate while she was wasting away in that hospital. I clenched my fists. And now you're taking her jewelry? Taking? Patricia laughed. Honey, I've been selling her trashy trinkets since year 1. David never noticed, just like he won't notice when I'm done cleaning out the company accounts. You won't get away with this. Watch me. I just convinced your father to remove you from his will completely. Apparently, you're too unstable to inherit anything. Good luck proving otherwise. Those were your mother's things and now they're mine, just like everything else. After she hung up, Sarah stopped the recording, a triumphant look on her face. Just then, a text came in from Dad. Your behavior is destroying this family. Until you apologize to Patricia, don't bother coming home. Ugly want a war, I said, pulling out Mom's old diary, which I found hidden in the attic last week. Let's give them one. What's that? Sarah asked, her eyes narrowing. Mom's record of everything. Dated entries of her catching Dad and Patricia together. Emails from her old computer. She knew Sarah. She knew they were having an affair. Sarah nodded, resolute. No more playing nice. They want to erase your mom. Let's see how they handle the truth coming out. Just then, Uncle Thomas called again. Margaret, I got proof Patricia's been forging your father's signature on company checks. You won't believe who she's been paying. A week later, breaking news blared from my office TV. Local businesswoman Patricia Mitchell arrested in connection with a multi-state fraud scheme. Sarah grabbed the remote, turning up the volume as the anchor continued. The FBI investigation reveals a pattern of insurance fraud spanning 3 states, with estimated damages in the millions. My phone rang. It was Uncle Thomas. Margaret, you need to hear this. Your father just caught Patricia with Jack Thompson, his own business partner. Not only that, but they've been embezzling together. David walked in on them transferring company funds offshore. Before I could react, my office door burst open. Dad stood there, looking shattered. Margaret, I need your help. The company, Patricia, she. Let me guess. I interrupted. She cleaned out the accounts. Dad's face crumbled. How did you? The same way she did with her last 3 husbands. Remember Robert Kane? He's been building a case against her for years. He reached out to me last month. He took a shaky breath. The company's bankrupt, the loans she took out. I'm losing everything, Margaret. I was wrong about everything. Your mother's dress, her jewelry, her memory. Henry stepped in, his voice calm but firm. Mr. Mitchell, I think it's time for you to leave. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Pat just tried boarding a flight to Cancun. FBI grabbed her at the gate. I looked back at Dad. You know what's funny? All these years, you chose her over me, and she was playing you the entire time. I can fix this, he whispered. No, you can't. Uncle Thomas helped me protect Mom's inheritance, the only assets Pat couldn't touch. The company's gone, Dad, just like our relationship. 3 months later, I stood in front of the mirror in my wedding dress. Not my mom's, but still perfect. Uncle Thomas appeared in the doorway, ready to walk me down the aisle. Sarah adjusted my veil, smiling. Pat's sentencing is tomorrow. 20 years minimum. And Dad? He was living with his sister, asking if he could still be a part of the wedding. But some bridges can't be rebuilt. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with people who truly loved us. No Patricia. No Dad. No toxic drama. Later that night, during the reception, Uncle Thomas raised his glass. To Margaret and Henry, and to Linda, who's watching over her daughter today. My phone lit up with a message from Dad. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, But I'm so sorry, Margaret, for everything. Henry pulled me close, looking around at my real family, Uncle Thomas, Sarah, Henry, and our friends. I smiled, feeling ready for this new life. Some people might call it karma. I call it justice. Either way, I won. What would you do if someone close to you tried to erase the memory of a loved one you'd lost? Would you hope they change, or would you protect yourself, even if it meant losing them? Let me know your thoughts below. I'm Rose, sitting in my cramped Chicago apartment, staring at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. It mocks me as I try to churn out the next chapter of my novel. The pile of unpaid bills on the coffee table looms in the corner of my eye, a constant reminder that my barista job barely covers rent. But hey, a girl's got dreams, right? My phone buzzes, pulling me from my thoughts. It's my best friend, William. Yo, Rose, how's the writing going? I sigh. About as well as my love life, non-existent. He chuckles. Come on, it can't be that bad. Want to grab a coffee? I'm buying. You know Iceland coffee all day, right? But fine, ni Eva Joe's in 20. I throw on a worn-out jacket and head out, the chilly Chicago wind nipping at my face. As I walk, my thoughts drift to my so-called family. My mom, Linda, had me when she was practically a kid herself. And my biological dad disappeared faster than you can say, deadbeat. At Joe's, I spot William waving from our usual corner booth. He's already ordered my usual latte, bless him. Spill it, he says as I slide in across from him. What's got you looking like someone stole your last cookie? I take a sip, savoring the warmth before answering. Just family stuff, you know how it is. William nods, understanding in his eyes. He's heard it all before. Oliver and Nancy, he asks. Bingo. I don't even know why I bother anymore. I say, frustration simmering just beneath the surface. Oliver married my mom when I was 5, but he never treated me like I was his. And Nancy, my so-called sister, don't even get me started. They're still giving you a hard time. I nod, trying to keep my voice steady. It's been worse since Mom died. They don't even hide how much they don't want me around anymore. William reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. You don't need them, Rose. You've got friends who actually care about you. I know, I say, forcing a smile. It's just, they're supposed to be family, you know? As we finish our coffee, my phone pings with a new email. I open it, groaning at the sight of an overly formal invitation. What now? William asks, raising an eyebrow. It's an invite to Oliver's 55th birthday bash. Some fancy party at the mansion, I say, holding up my phone for him to see. Are you actually considering going? He asks, skepticism written all over his face. I hesitate, torn. Part of me wants to delete the email and forget I ever saw it. But another part, yeah, I think I will. I don't know why I keep torturing myself. But maybe this time will be different. William gives me a wary look. Just be careful, okay? And call me if you need an escape plan. I nod, though a knot forms in my stomach as I head home. Back in my apartment, I flop onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. The invitation feels like it's burning a hole in my pocket. I pull it out and read it again. You are cordially invited to celebrate Oliver Thompson's 55th birthday. Cordially, right. That's how they've always treated me, with forced politeness and a healthy dose of disdain. I can't help but remember Mom's funeral, the way Oliver and Nancy stood apart, like my grief was some contagious disease. The whispers, the sidelong glances, but still I keep going back, keep hoping that maybe this time they'll see me as part of the family. I grab my phone, typing out a quick RSVP. I'll be there. As I hit send, I wonder if I'm making a huge mistake. The night of the party, I find myself standing in front of Oliver's mansion, my hand hovering over the ornate doorbell. The muffled sounds of laughter and clinking glasses seep through the heavy door. I take a deep breath, smooth down my dress, and press the bell. A butler answers, his gaze sweeping over me with thinly veiled disdain. Name? Rose Johnson, I say, forcing confidence into my voice. I'm Oliver's stepdaughter. He raises an eyebrow but steps aside, allowing me in. The noise hits me like a wave. Dozens of people in designer clothes, chattering and sipping champagne. Rose, you made it. William's voice cuts through the din. I turn to see him pushing through the crowd, a grin plastered on his face. He pulls me into a hug. Wouldn't miss it, I reply, trying to smile. Thanks for being my plus one. Are you kidding? Free booze and a front row seat to the family drama. I'm all in, he jokes. I laugh, swatting his arm. Jerk. Come on, let's grab a drink. As we weave through the crowd, I can feel eyes on me, hear the whispers that trail in our wake. I try to focus on William's running commentary about the stuffy rich folks, but it's hard to ignore the feeling of being watched. Well, if it isn't the prodigal stepdaughter, a familiar voice sneers. I turn to see Nancy, dressed to the nines in a gown that probably costs more than my rent. A champagne flute dangles from her perfectly manicured fingers. Hello, Nancy, I say, forcing a polite smile. Happy birthday to Oliver. She smirks. Oh, I'm sure Daddy will be thrilled you remembered. He's over there, holding court with his business partners. Why don't you go say hello? Before I can respond, she saunters off, leaving a trail of expensive perfume. William squeezes my shoulder. You okay? Yeah, I mutter, downing my champagne in one gulp. Let's go find him. We spot Oliver surrounded by men in sharp suits, their conversation a blur of stock prices and mergers. I approach hesitantly. Oliver, I say, my voice barely a whisper. He turns, his smile faltering for just a second. Rose, you came, he says, pulling me into a stiff, awkward hug. Gentlemen, this is my stepdaughter. One of the men, younger than the rest, steps forward with a charming smile. Michael Davis. Pleasure to meet you, Rose. As Michael and I shook hands, I felt an unexpected flutter in my stomach. Maybe, just maybe, this evening wouldn't be so bad after all. For the next hour, I actually started to enjoy myself. Michael was charming, funny, and easy to talk to, and even Oliver seemed to be warming up. Soon Emma, Oliver's business partner's daughter, joined us, and the four of us were laughing and swapping stories. But then Nancy reappeared, clearly drunk, stumbling into our little circle. She latched onto Michael's arm, her eyes narrowing as she noticed me. Mikey, I see you've met my dear half-sister, she slurred, each word laced with bitterness. Did she tell you about her mysterious background? The mood shifted instantly. Michael's brow furrowed. What do you mean? He asked, his smile fading. Nancy's eyes gleamed with malice as she grinned. Oh, you didn't know? Rose here is of unknown parentage. Daddy took her in out of the goodness of his heart. The silence was suffocating. I felt the blood drain from my face as everyone turned to stare. Oliver cleared his throat but said nothing, his gaze firmly fixed on the floor. Michael looked between Nancy and me, clearly unsure how to respond. Emma gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. Frozen in place, I barely registered Nancy's next words. It's quite the scandal, really. No one knows who her real father is. For all we know, she could be. That's enough, Nancy. William's voice sliced through the tension, and before I knew it, his arm was around my shoulders. Rose, let's go. As he led me away, I glanced back just once and caught Oliver's expression. He looked relieved, like he was glad to see me go. We burst out of the mansion and into the cool night air. I gulped down a shaky breath, trying to keep myself from falling apart. Rose, breathe. It's okay. They're not worth it, William murmured, pulling me into a hug. I shook my head, tears spilling over. How could she, in front of everyone? She's a miserable person, that's how. Come on, I'm taking you home. The ride back to my apartment was a blur. William tried to comfort me, but I barely heard him. All I could think about was the look on everyone's faces, the pity, the shock, the judgment. By the time we got to my place, my heart felt like it had been ripped open. I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto the couch. William lingered by the door. Do you want me to stay? He asked softly. I shook my head. No, I need to be alone right now. Thanks for everything, William. After you left, I sat in the dark, replaying the entire night in my mind. How could I have been so stupid to think that maybe, just maybe, they'd accept me this time? My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a notification from Instagram. With shaking hands, I opened it. There it was, a post from Nancy, clearly made before the party. Can't wait to see everyone tonight. Well, almost everyone. #family secrets, #unknown parentage. The comments were filled with laughing emojis, shocked faces, and questions. People I thought were friends, all chiming in and speculating about me. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a heart full of rage. Enough was enough. It was time to fight back. My first call was to Grandma Eleanor. We hadn't spoken much since Mom died, but I needed answers. "Rose, is everything all right, dear?" she asked, her voice concerned. "Not really, Grandma. I need to talk to you about Mom and Oliver." There was a long pause before she responded. "I suppose it's time you knew the truth. Come over for tea." An hour later, I was sitting in Grandma's cozy living room, clutching a steaming mug of tea as she looked at me, a sadness in her eyes. "Your mother loved you more than anything, Rose," she began. "But Oliver, he made her life hell." My hands tightened around the mug. "What do you mean?" "He was controlling, manipulative. He isolated Linda from her friends, from me. And his business practices, let's just say they weren't entirely above board." As Grandma spoke, the pieces began to fall into place. I remembered the hushed arguments. I remember overhearing things as a child, the inexplicable mood swings, the way Oliver always seemed to get his way, how Mom would fall silent whenever he entered the room. But I never understood why no one said anything. Grandma's eyes filled with tears when I asked her. "We tried, dear, but Oliver had everyone under his thumb, including Linda. He isolated her, made sure she had no one to turn to." I left Grandma's house with a heavy heart, but a newfound determination. The truth was uglier than I'd imagined, but I was done being in the dark. My next stop was William's place. "I need your help," I said the moment he opened the door. William raised an eyebrow. "We going to dig into Oliver's company?" I nodded. "I know it's risky, but we have to. I need to know what he's hiding." "Isn't that illegal?" he asked, a cautious smile tugging at his lips. "Not if we do it right. Come on, I know you've got connections in the finance world." For the next few days, William and I pored over public records, financial reports, and anything else we could get our hands on. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. "Holy," William muttered, staring at his laptop screen in disbelief. "Rose, look at this." I leaned over his shoulder, my eyes widening. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yep," he said grimly. "Looks like your dear old stepdad's been cooking the books for years. Embezzlement, fraud, you name it." Just then, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. "Rose? It's Emma. I'm really sorry about what happened at the party. I think there's something you should know about Nancy." We met at a quiet cafe later that afternoon. Emma looked nervous, her hands trembling as she held her coffee cup. "Nancy's been bullying people for years," she blurted out. "Not just you. I've got proof, screenshots, videos, everything." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, still stunned. Emma met my eyes with a fierce determination. "Because it's time someone stood up to her. And I think that someone is you." As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Michael. "Rose, we need to talk. I'm not just a business associate of Oliver's. I'm an undercover journalist investigating his company." My head was spinning. In just a few days, my whole world had turned upside down. But for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. That night, I sat at my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The cursor blinked at me, waiting. I took a deep breath and started typing. Chapter 1. The Girl in the Shadows. My tell-all book about growing up in a toxic family was finally taking shape. No real names, of course. I wasn't stupid, but the truth was all there. "And that's all the time we have for today's segment," the talk show host announced, turning to me with a smile. Join us next week when we'll be talking to Rose Johnson, author of the runaway bestseller Shadows in the Family Portrait. Rose, thanks for being here. I smiled at the camera, my heart racing. "Thanks for having me." The moment we went off air, my phone exploded with notifications. The book had struck a chord, sparking conversations about emotional abuse and toxic family dynamics across the country. But this was just the beginning. William burst into my apartment, waving a newspaper in his hand. "Have you seen this?" he asked, practically vibrating with excitement. I grabbed the paper, my eyes widening at the headline. Thompson Industries under federal investigation for fraud. Michael's exposé had done its job. Oliver's carefully constructed empire was crumbling. My phone rang again. It was Emma, her voice breathless with excitement. It worked. The board saw the evidence of Nancy's bullying. She's been fired, and her social media is blowing up. No one wants to touch her with a 10-foot pole. I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. It was actually happening. The truth was finally coming out. Then came the call I'd been dreading. "Rose, Oliver's voice was weak, strained. "I've had a heart attack. The doctors say it's stress. I know I have no right to ask, but I need you." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Oliver, but I can't be there for you. Not after everything you've done." "But we're family," he pleaded. "No, Oliver. We're not," I replied, my voice steady. "Take care of yourself." I hung up, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The next day, another call came in. This time, it was Nancy, her voice tearful and apologetic. "Rose, I'm so sorry for everything. Can we talk?" I listened to her rambling apology, feeling nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just emptiness. "I hear you, Nancy, and I accept your apology. But that doesn't mean I want you in my life." I hung up, finally ready to move on. I had spent too many years chasing acceptance from people who never deserved my loyalty. Now, I was free.